Chapter number 1. Historiography, Development in West. Historical research, writing and studies are carried out with an objective of understanding the chronology of the past events and their interconnections. This is a continuous process. In the physical and natural science, the empirical method, laboratory method of experiments and observations is used to verify the available knowledge. This method allows formulating laws that remain true irrespective of the time and space. Those laws can be tested and proved repeatedly. In historical research, it may not be possible to use the method of laboratory experiments and observations. This is so because we are not present in the historical time and space, and historical events cannot be recreated. Also in history, it is not possible to formulate laws that remain true irrespective of the time and space. To begin, we need an expert who knows the language and script of the historical document in order to read it and understand its meaning. Also, the expert can examine the authenticity of the document by using criteria such as literary style, author style of writing, manufacturing date and type of paper, stamps of authority, etc. Such a document is further scrutinized by a historian with the help of relevant historical reference. Historical research method. Writing of historical narrative. Examine relevant reference, the available historical information. Collecting historical information, highlighting the process that leads to historical transition. Carrying out comparative analysis. Understanding the reference regarding time and space of the given historical event, and also various conceptual frameworks used in historical research methods. Formulating relevant questions in view of the historical reference. Formulating hypotheses, critical examining of various sources of history. Tradition of historiography. We have learned about the historical research methods, critically examining the historical sources and writing the historical narrative. The writing of critical historical narrative is known as historiography. A scholar who writes such a narrative is a historian. The historian cannot include every past event in his narrative. The inclusion and interpretation of historical events by the historian often depends on the conceptual framework adopted by him. His style of writing is determined by that conceptual framework. The tradition of writing historical narrative, that is historiography, was not prevalent in the ancient societies of the world. However, that does not mean that they were not aware of historical time or were not eager to know about it. Ancient people also felt the need of passing on the stories of the life and value of the ancestors to the next generation. Ancient communities all over the world used various means like cave paintings, storytelling, singing songs and ballads, etc. For this purpose, these traditional means are looked upon as the source of history in the modern historiography. Do you know? The above picture shows a fragment of the earliest inscription. A forward marching file of soldiers holding shields and spears is seen here. The general is in the front. The tradition of recording historical events can be traced back to the Summer civilization in Mesopotamia. Names of Sumerian kings and the stories of battles fought by them have been preserved in the various inscriptions. The earliest inscriptions shown above date back to 4500 BCE. It records a battle fought between two kingdoms. It is now displayed at the Louvre Museum in France. Modern historiography. Four main characteristics of modern historiography. First, its method is based on scientific principles. It begins with the formation of relevant questions. Second, these questions are anthropocentric. It means that these questions are about the dates of the members of ancient human societies of a particular period. History does not suggest any interrelation between the divine and human dates. Third, answers to these questions are supported by reliable evidence. Fourth, history presents a graph of the mankind's journey with the help of past human dates. It is said that the modern historiography with above characteristics has its roots in the ancient Greek historical writings. History is generally a Greek term. Herodotus, the Greek historian of the 5th century BCE, used it first for his book entitled The History. Development of scientific perspective in Europe and historiography. Till the 18th century CE, Europe had achieved a remarkable progress in the field of philosophy and science. Scholars by then had come to believe in the possibility of studying the social and historical truth by applying scientific methods. Now the philosophical decisions focus more and more on the objectives in the history and historiography. Prior to the 18th century, all European universities were interested only in the philosophical discoveries revolving around Devian phenomenon. However, gradually this technoria began to change. In 1737 EC, the Göttingen University was founded in Germany. This university for the first time had an independent department of history. Later, other German universities also became centers of historical study. Notable scholars. The contribution of many scholars are important in the development of historiography. Let us have a look at the contribution of the few notable scholars. René Descartes, 1596 to 1650. René Descartes was the foremost among the scholars who insist the verifying the reliability of historical documents by critical examining them. Among the rules given by him in his book, Discovery on the Method, the following is supposed to have a great impact on the scientific method of research. Never to accept anything for the true till all grounds of doubt are excluded. Voltaire, 1694 to 1778. Voltaire's original name was Francisco Maria Aureus. He was French. He opined that along with objective truth and chronology of the historical events, considering social traditions, trade, economy, agriculture, etc., was also equally important in historiography. It gave rise to the thought that understanding all aspects of human life is important for history writing. Thus, it is said that Voltaire was the founder of modern historiography. Giorgio Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel, 1770 to 1831. Hegel was a German philosopher. He insists that the historical reality should be presented in a logical manner. To him, the timeline of historical events was indicative of progress. He also thought that presentation of history is bound to the change over time as new evidence would come forth. With Hegel's philosophy, many scholars were convinced that historical methods were not of lesser quality, though they differed from scientific methods. The location of these lectures and articles is published in a book, Encyclopedia of Philosophical Science. His book, Reason in History, is well known. Leopold von Ranke, 1795 to 1886. Historiography of the 19th century was greatly influenced by the thoughts of Leopold von Ranke of Berlin University. He spoke about the critical method of historical research. He put emphasis on the utmost importance of information gathered through original documents. He also stated that all types of documents associated with the historical event need to be examined with greatest care. He believed that with this method it was possible to reach the historical truth. He criticized imaginative narration of history. Collection of his articles is published in two books entitled The Theory and the Practice of History and The Secret of World History. Karl Marx, 1818-1883. In the later half of the 19th century, a new school of thought arose, keeping in view the new thesis formulated by Karl Marx. According to Karl Marx, history was not about abstract ideas, it was about living people. Human relations are shaped by the fundamental needs of people and ownership as well as nature of prevalent means of production to meet those needs. The accessibility of these means to different parts of society may not be equal. This inequality causes a division of the society into classes, leading to classes struggle. According to Marx, human history is the history of the class struggle, as the class that owns the means of production economical exploit the rest of the classes. Thus, Capital, a treatise written by him, is the most revered book all over the world. Annals School. At the onset of the 20th century, a new school of historiography Aureus in France, which is known as Analyst School. Analyst School gave a new direction to history writing. It was recognized now that history writing. It was recognized now that history is not only about the political events, themes accordingly politics and wars, but also about the climate, local people, agriculture, trade, technology, means of communication, social divisions, and their collective physiology, etc. In the historical time, the analysis school was started by French historians. Feminist historiography. Feminist historiography means the restructuring of the history from the perspective of women. The writings of Simonia's behavior help in establishing the fundamentals of feminism. She was French. The feminist historiography emphasized not only one on the inclusion of women in history, but also the rating of the male dominatory perspective of history. It draws historical research to focus in depth on various aspects of women's life, such as their employment, their role in trade unions, institutions working for their family life, etc. In the historical writings, after 1990, women are portrayed as an independent social class. Michael Foucault, 1926 to 1984, the French historian of the 20th century, Michael Foucault brought forth a new concept in historiography. He, in his book Archaeology of Knowledge, argued that the prevailing practice of arranging historical events in a chronology order is not right. He drew attention to the fact that archaeology does not strive to reach the ultimate historical truth but attempts to explain various transitions in the past. Foucault felt that explaining the transitions in history is more important. He called his method the archaeology of knowledge. Foucault subjected that so far unknowledge areas by historians such as physiological disorders, science of medicine, prison administration, etc. to historical analysis. Thus, the scope of historiography keeps continuously expanding. Writing of histories of various subjects like literature, architecture, sculpture, drawing and painting, music, dance, drama, film and television, etc. came into practice.